It's 2 o'clock in the morning and I haven't slept at all. So I decided to pull out my laptop and do some work emails. But then a package arrived and it said it was important. So I had to check it out. Inside the package was a creepy doll that looked like she was crying. And then as soon as I touched her, blood started pouring out of her eyes and mouth. Now I'm being hunted by an evil spirit that's trying to possess me. If you guys want this story to be continued, leave a thumbs up. It was a dark and stormy night. The wind howled outside and the rain poured down in sheets. I was sitting in my room trying to work on some emails, but it was difficult to focus with all of the noise. I rubbed my tired eyes and yawned. I hadn't slept at all the night before because I'd been working on a big project. I needed to finish those emails so I could finally go to bed. Suddenly, there was a loud bang at the door. I jumped and nearly fell off of my chair. What was that? I thought. The wind must have blown something against the door. Just then, another loud bang sounded, and I heard what sounded like whispering coming from behind the door. I could have sworn I heard someone say my name. I hesitated for a moment, not wanting to believe what I had just heard. And then I slowly got up and walked over to the door. I put my hand on the doorknob and turned it. The door creaked open and I stepped outside into the hallway. As soon as I stepped outside, I felt a cold breeze on my neck. I shivered and quickly walked back into my room and closed the door. I leaned against the door and tried to calm my racing heart. Was I just imagining things, I thought? Of course I was. There was no one out there but the wind and the rain. I took a deep breath and turned to go back to my desk. But then I saw something on the floor in front of me that made me jump. There was a package in front of my door. I had not seen it before. Who could have delivered it in the middle of the night? And why would they leave a package outside my door instead of just ringing the doorbell? I walked over and picked the package up. It was wrapped in brown paper and tied with some string. I carefully tore off the wrapping and opened the box. Inside was a doll. She was wearing a Victorian nightgown and a bonnet, and she had long flowing hair. Her eyes were closed, and she looked like she was fast asleep. As soon as I saw her, I felt a strange connection to her, as if she were reaching out to me across time itself. I reached out and gently touched her cheek. The moment my fingers made contact with her skin, her eyes flew open and a single tear rolled down her cheek. I gasped and pulled my hand away. But then another tear came, and then another, until her entire face was wet with tears. But those weren't normal tears. They were red. The doll was crying blood. I screamed and threw the doll across the room. She hit the wall and fell to the floor. I backed away from her, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want her anywhere near me. But then something even more terrifying happened. She started to get up. The doll began to move on the floor, inching closer and closer to me. I don't know how dolls can move without legs, but somehow she was crawling towards me, and her bloody tears were dripping onto the floor. I screamed again and ran to hide under my bed. I stayed there for what felt like hours, listening to the doll move around in my room. Finally, when I was sure she had gone away, I got out from under the bed and cautiously made my way to the corner where she was. I stared at the doll, too afraid to move or make a sound. And that's when I saw it. A tiny smile was playing on her lips. Suddenly, I heard a voice in my head that sounded ancient and filled with malice. You cannot escape me now, child. I am here to claim what is mine. I screamed and ran to the window. One had to get out of there. But as soon as I opened the window and stepped outside, the wind picked up and the rain poured down, harder than ever before. I looked back at the house and saw the doll standing on my windowsill. She was smiling at me and her eyes glowed red in the darkness. Then she disappeared. I slammed the window shut and ran back inside. I locked the window and the door and huddled in the corner trying to make myself small. Then I heard scratching at the door. I pressed my back against the wall and watched in terror as the scratching grew louder and more frantic. Then the door began to shake. I squeezed my eyes shut and waited for the inevitable. But it never came. After a few minutes, the scratching stopped and I heard what sounded like a sigh. I slowly opened my eyes and saw that the door was slightly ajar. Whoever had been outside my door had left. I didn't move. I just stared at the door. I knew whoever was out there would come back. I had to get out of that house. So I ran to the window again and threw it open. The rain had stopped and the clouds had parted, revealing a bright, beautiful moon. Maybe it wasn't so bad outside after all. I climbed onto the windowsill and prepared to jump, but then I heard a voice behind me. "You're not going anywhere, child." I spun around and saw the doll standing in the doorway. She was smiling at me, and her eyes glowed red in the moonlight. I screamed and scrambled away from the window. The doll took a step forward, and I fell to the floor. "She's mine now," the doll said. And then she lunged. I don't remember what happened next. I guess I passed out because the next thing I knew, I woke up in my bed with a star. I was soaked in sweat and my heart was racing. Had that all been a dream? I looked down at my pajamas and saw that they were wet too. I sat up in bed and noticed that my room was dark. The curtains were drawn. Suddenly, I remembered the doll. Where was she? I threw off the covers and rushed to the window. The doll was sitting on my windowsill, staring at me with her glowing red eyes. She was smiling, and I could swear she winked at me. I screamed and backed away from the window. This was no dream. The doll was real, and she wanted me dead. "I'll protect you," a voice said behind me. I turned and saw my grandmother standing in the doorway. She was holding a silver locket in her hand. "Is that for me?" I asked. My grandmother nodded. "Take this," she said. "It will keep you safe." I reached out and took the locket from her. The moment my fingers touched it, I felt a surge of power. The doll let out a blood-curdling scream and threw herself off the windowsill. I watched in horror as she fell to the ground below. My grandmother and I rushed to the window and peered out. We couldn't see the doll anywhere. I felt a sense of relief knowing that she was gone, but also a sense of sadness. I had formed an attachment to her, even though I knew she was evil. Then I heard a voice in my head. "You can't hide from me forever, child. I am always with you." And then the voice was gone. I sighed and turned away from the window. My grandmother placed a hand on my shoulder. "Don't worry," she said. "I won't let her hurt you. We never did find the doll. But sometimes at night I still hear her scratching at my window. And every time I look, she's right there on the other side, her eyes glowing red in the darkness, waiting for me to let her in." What did you think about the story? Leave a comment. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe. If you want to hear more scary stories, stay tuned.